music, dance, theater, it's time to take a seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez. Hear from performers, producers, presenters, and creators who enrich our lives in the performing arts. Who's on stage? Here is Tom Alvarez to introduce you.
Hello, welcome to On the Aisle with yours truly, Tom Alvarez. My guest on today's episode is Steve Hackman, a composer, conductor, producer, DJ, arranger, songwriter, singer, and pianist. A versatile musical powerhouse and creative visionary, Hackman is a daring voice intent on redefining art music in the 21st century. You were hearing Holy Way from The Break, Hackman's original four-part immersive music project. Trained at the elite level classically, but equally adept in popular styles, Hackman's breadth of musical fluency and technique is uncanny. He uses these wide-ranging abilities to create original music of decisive modernism, yet rooted in elevated classicism. His groundbreaking orchestral fusions, such as Brahms versus Radiohead and Beethoven versus Coldplay, have introduced new audiences to symphony orchestras. Join me now for my conversation with Steve Hackman. Welcome, Steve. It's a pleasure having you on my show.
Pleasure to be here, Tom. Love talking to you.
And it's great to see you. Where are you calling from?
I'm in Baltimore, Maryland right now.
And what are you doing in Baltimore?
I lead a series with the Baltimore Symphony called Fusion, and this is our third program of the year together. This one is Igor Dam Stravinsky, which is a fusion of Stravinsky's Petrushka with Kendrick Lamar's album Damn.
Okay. Did you do that same concert here with the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra?
Yep, in the fall. It was in November, maybe?
Yeah, and that's the one I missed, unfortunately. So just for the sake of our listeners, I wanted to give them background on our acquaintanceship, our friendship. Actually, we met when you were with the Indianapolis Symphony here. When was that? For the Beethoven Coldplay concert, correct?
I think that's the first time we talked. Yeah, and gosh, that's a few years ago at least. Right?
Yeah, and actually, I also interviewed you for my column on the Iowa, Tom Alvarez. So I already know quite a bit about you, but I want to encourage folks to read an in-depth interview with you. It's available on my website at tomalvarez.studio. So forgive me if I ask you some of those same questions in case for those who prefer podcasts over reading. Anyway, I write long form, as you know, but I enjoy delving deep. But in any case, so tell me about this particular concert. Tell our listeners about the content, the one that you're doing right now, and then we'll get into the one you're coming here to do.
Yeah. Well, as I said, it's a fusion of Petrushka with Kendrick Lamar's Pulitzer Prize winning album Damn. It is one of the most sort of daring fusion works that I've created, I think. I mean, given the explosive originality and ingenious nature of the derivative content, the Stravinsky Ballet and the Kendrick album, I had quite a palette to work from. The two are combined in order, which is unique among the rest of my fusion productions. That's the only time I've ever done that. In the case of, let's say, Brahms Radiohead, there are, I choose the Radiohead songs that work in a certain moment of the Brahms symphony, which results in a rearrangement of the Radiohead songs, as compared with how you would hear them on the original album. But in this case, you hear the songs of Kendrick Lamar's Damn in order as they are embedded into the Stravinsky ballet. And I guess finally they both, just if I could summarize the concept of the production, the Stravinsky ballet, Petrushka, the concept is that these puppets that this kind of charlatan magician brings to life by tapping with his magic flute, they embody human emotions through the course of the ballet more than the passersby that are sort of, involved in this kind of base revelry of what's called the Shrovetide Fair in St. Petersburg. So we feel human emotions of love and pride and lust and humility through the puppets. Well, the Kendrick Lamar album, Damn, the song titles are those exact human emotions: love, lust, pride. And so those songs are combined with the ballet in the moments where you're feeling that from the puppets, the characters.
Came first, the chicken or the egg? Which of the one was the launching point for the inspiration? Was it the classical piece or was it the Lamar?
I would say, in this case, it was the Kendrick Lamar. I wanted to create a fusion work with his album To Pimp a Butterfly, which was the predecessor to Damn. And I think I got down the road on that, and I was considering pairing To Pimp a Butterfly with Rite of Spring.
Mm-hmm.
And I still want to do that, to be honest. But then it just occurred, I started to listen to Damn more, and I think what was the sort of decisive moment was when I realized that Damn could become, first of all, Damn won the Pulitzer Prize. Not to say To Pimp a Butterfly didn't deserve a Pulitzer Prize. It probably could have won too. They're both genius albums. But so Damn winning the Pulitzer Prize was something that I think it's going to encourage high art institutions like symphony orchestras probably to take a closer look at his work. In my opinion, they should be already, but perhaps it's just not on their radar. That makes sense why it wouldn't be, because it's not like has symphony pieces that they would be considering. But in any case, that was something that I thought would be an interesting and compelling narrative with the symphony orchestras. And then when I realized that I could combine the two in order like that, I thought, this might really work in an interesting kind of in an innovative way as compared to what I've done so far.
When did this piece premiere and where?
2018 in Indianapolis.
Oh, in Indy. Wow. And we were the recipient of that.
So almost all of them.
Yeah. How long did it take from the beginning to end for you to create this work? And does it vary for all of these fusion pieces, by the way?
It absolutely varies. So I'll give the examples of the pieces that are being played this week and next. Kendrick Lamar and Stravinsky, I remember a writing period of a very intense, maybe 5 to 6 weeks on that. And I remember I was living in New York at the time, and it was all I was focused on for around a month and a half, I feel like. It was the fall of 2017, because it premiered then in the spring of 2018. And I Love Her, the Beatles reimagined, which we'll present with the Indianapolis Symphony next Wednesday, was written in 3 weeks. Now, that was an insanely compressed creative period, and an unbelievably fruitful creative period. I would say a borderline unhealthy creative period. It was
I was just going to ask why do you say insanely? What was going on?
Well, it was commissioned by a friend of mine who was having an event.
Okay.
The idea just came about only weeks before this event.
I'll see you on deadline.
For sure. I'm always on a deadline, Tom.
Yeah.
So, but
So you had to do it.
yeah, I think every composer's like that. But
Do you like working that way, by the way? Do you like the pressure?
sure, yeah,
Do you feed off of it, so to speak?
I can't say I feed off there there being pressure,
Hmm.
any more than I feed off the excitement of a non-pressurized creative activity. I mean,
Sure.
I just love to be creative. I mean, I would,
Mhm.
to be honest, as I look back on the creative period that resulted in And I Love Her, there were a lot of moments where I just thought I just don't have anything in the tank right now, and I don't know if I'm going if what is going to emerge is going to be the best idea. I mean, I'm sure everybody listening and you can relate to that. When you're
Yeah.
exhausted, exhausted, sometimes you just need to know when to stop. But in the case of And I Love Her, some of the best ideas came from exhaustion. I remember specifically a couple moments where I just took down a demo of something, I wrote something down. I was like, okay, I'm sure this is not going to make it, but it's all I've got right now, and I need to, take an hour nap. Um, but those ended up being um, some of the most creative moments of the show, perhaps because when we're that exhausted, our kind of our self-editing process um, can somehow be curbed, you know, or our that editor in ourselves has long since gone for its nap, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. I've never heard someone express their creative process in that way. I always wondered how you work. It's very intricate what you do. It's very complicated. Would you say that's true?
Oh, I mean,
I mean, fusing those two genres together, I marvel at it. You're the only one doing that, aren't you? The way you do it, correct? In the
I,
world?
I can't say with certainty that I've heard of, yes, but these days, and we've talked before, and I've shared with you, I'm doing a lot of things creatively, from creating my own music to music for ballet to scoring a film. It all feels
Oh, and yeah, I definitely want to talk to you about that in a little while. But the film stuff, I didn't. I recall you did mention that, but okay. But let's get back to this piece that you're. Okay, talk about the piece, the Beatles piece that you're bringing to Indianapolis, and the dates are the 17th. It's a one night only, correct? On a Wednesday night at the
correct.
Hilbert.
Correct. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
this is one that I'm so excited about presenting this in Indianapolis. I mean, as you know, Indianapolis is like a second home to me. I've been there for going on, more than 10 years. They've premiered most of these fusion works. Um, and it's just such a wonderful
And
relationship.
of course, you can't mention any of that without mentioning Jack Everly.
Jack's a mentor of mine, Ty's a mentor of mine. I love them, and they have from the very beginning been so kind to me, and I've learned so much from them. I've learned so much from everybody there at the ISO that I've come into contact with. But Jack and Ty are, listen, they're the best in the business. Like so to be able to,
And why? Why? Why do you feel they're the best of the business?
well, first of all, consistency of quality over decades. And one need only look at whether it's the Yuletide production that they continue to just hit out of the park, or their pops programming across the board. It just never lets up in quality. They're just consummate professionals. They know they know the landscape of orchestral music and orchestral institutions, and they're just such incredible partners, I think, with orchestras, not only the ISO, but every orchestra that they go to. And Jack, I think, has scaled back a little bit his activities, but
Didn't he have ties with Baltimore where you are? Didn't he? Was he their pops conductor or is he still?
I don't think he is anymore. But I mean,
Okay.
it's funny. I mean, I had a series with Pittsburgh where he was also pops conductor. I mean, it's almost like because Jack and Ty tried. Well, actually, I remember in Pittsburgh, the players asked Jack and Ty about me, when they were considering bringing me there. So I think in some cases they overtly have
Well,
recommended.
yeah, well, it used to be when you had ties with them, you would ensure you get a gig in Naples where he was. I don't know if he's still there, and also in
I do think it
Canada.
was. I
In
do think it
Canada
was
as well.
Windsor,
Somewhere.
right? Isn't it? Isn't it?
I
Is that
think
right?
so. Yeah, yeah.
I've not been
You
to
had
those.
about 4 or 5 of them going.
Yeah, I've not been to those.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say that this fusion work that you do, they supported from the get-go and gave you the platform to try it out in front of audiences. And wow.
Oh, absolutely. As long as we're going back to the beginning, I have to give great credit also to Martin Schur, who was the artistic, I think, VP at the time, and brought me in to be a collaborator with Time for Three and to lead the Happy Hour series. Martin,
I've
coincidentally,
forgotten about time. I interviewed those guys recently, and they came back to do a concert, and you were part of the conversation. I remember when they talked about the support. They got a similar kind of support from Jack and Ty to launch their career. So their return, their homecoming. At a concert this past year was very sort of emotional that they shared that how important it was to be back there on that stage, what kind of it all started. So you had a similar experience.
yeah, I sort of can't imagine that because I've been so fortunate to continue, to be at the ISO.
And by the way, I want to take a break here. You brought a couple of pieces that I would like to share with our listeners. And what is this first piece we're going to hear?
Well, I think we've shared some of my original music, and I launched a project last year called The Brink, which I set out to compose this music in order to answer the question, what would it be like if I applied all of the techniques that I've been using in the fusion orchestral productions, the composing, arranging, rearranging, orchestrating, producing, curating, to my own original music. And instead of writing original music that should fit into any existing conventional box or category, I instead just went with what I know how to do and applying that to sort of what I wanted to say. And what I wanted to say at that point in time, and still, is I wanted to convey this feeling of this increasing pressure of having something inside that sort of you want to get out. And as time goes on, and as you suppress it more and more, the feeling that if you don't get this out, you're going to suffocate. Like,
Yeah, it seemed to me that the title, "The Brink," I just imagine or presume that it's the brink of what? And it sounds ominous.
yeah, I think it is. And the first, what I want to write for Brink Productions, full length, and I've done two so far. They're each about 75 minutes. So I've done one and two. I've been writing number three, and I don't know when that'll premiere, but one premiered last March, two premiered last June. And so I think we've shared with you a couple selections from Brink one and Brink two.
What is this first piece?
Yes, so this first piece is from the Brink one. And this is actually the last song in the Brink one, so it's the conclusion, and it's sort of, I would say, sort of the emotional resolution of that piece. It's called "Gods Are Singing Too," and yeah, this one had 8 singers. I sort of wrote for the conventions that I knew. Didn't make the conscious decision to do this, but I think if I look back, I really wanted to, with the first Brink, just write for the things I was comfortable for. So I had 8 singers, a string quartet, and then the piano was a really featured instrument, and then the band, of course, the drums and bass and synth. But yeah, this is Gods Are Singing Too.
Okay, well, let's listen.
Once I knew
safe to say that you are in demand now, aren't you?
I think it's safe to say that.
Are you, is that not your schedule? What's your schedule like? Nonstop, from one gig to the next?
It's not one gig to the next because we need to build in writing time. So
Ah,
there's frankly enough demand right now that we're turning down a lot, and then we're also, um, the next phase is to begin to license out these fusion productions without me, so that if I'm scoring a film or writing a Broadway show or collaborating with an artist or writing my own music, that the show can still exist without me, essentially.
Steve, how did you choose the Beatles songs?
The
I
concept
mean,
of
how many did they write, by the way? How many did they release? Well,
that's
they even have stuff out there they didn't release. So, but
Sure. As far as number of Beatles songs on their albums, gosh, I would have to I don't know the exact number. I can Google it right now. I would think it's between on their actually official albums that they released, of which I think there's 13. So if we average maybe 10-ish, I think it's around maybe 150. Let's
mm,
see. In any case, somebody else can Google that. But
of course, I have to ask you the obvious. Did you grow up with them, listening to them?
yeah, so this is a very special production for me, and writing it was very magical. As I said, it was a little frantic. But the Beatles, I fell in love with the Beatles when I was 13. My sister encouraged me to listen to them, and then one of my best friends, I was a puny freshman, 13-year-old freshman, and you know really having a hard time finding my way in a high school. Um,
Where
and
was that, Steve? Where'd you go to
out-
high school?
outside of Chicago,
Okay.
well, Chicago suburbs, I shouldn't say it like that. Chicago
Which
suburbs.
one? Where?
Cary.
Okay.
Yeah. So this kid who eventually became one of my best friends, and to this day, and will probably be there in Indy next week, came to me one morning with the Beatles double disc, the red double disc, and said, "Hey, I heard you play piano and sing. Take this home, learn these songs. We're gonna sing them tomorrow." And
Hmm.
he was like this popular kind of cool kid who was friends with all these dangerous types. And so that was amazing. So anyway, I grew up with the Beatles. I was obsessed with their music and still am.
Were your parents as well? Are your parents boomers, by the way?
Yes, my parents loved the Beatles. My mom loved the early Beatles. My dad loved the late Beatles. They didn't play it around the house or anything, but the
Yeah.
records were there. And again, my sister loved them, and my sister.
Okay.
So in high school, well, everyone else was listening to whatever, like Nirvana and all the grunge stuff, the hip hop stuff. Not that I didn't listen to that, but I was listening to the Beatles and classical music and Fish basically in high school. Like that's my.
So, how did the Beatles' music speak to you? Or I presume it spoke to you. And why?
Um, that is a really good question, Tom. Well, I
You like the melodies, the lyrics, the themes, all the above?
well, that's of course that yeah, of course. But I started playing piano when I was 7. So when I was introduced to the Beatles, my favorite music up until that point, most likely was Bach and Mozart and Chopin and
Mm.
Beethoven. It's not as I don't want to portray it that I grew up in a classical music household, because I didn't. I just played the piano and I took lessons. So that's the music I spent, whatever, half hour a day practicing the piano. So Gershwin, I loved Gershwin. I loved Chopin. So when I heard the Beatles, I most likely heard all the substance and the compositional qualities that I had gotten used to in classical music, that I'd come to love in classical music, but in a totally different way, in this popular packaging, popular kind of context.
Steve, I think I've done some research on the Beatles, and but do you know, did any of them or did all of them have classical training?
Absolutely not. I mean,
But would you say they were aware of the repertoire?
of course. I mean, none of them could read music.
Did they
Um,
referenced it all the time, did they not?
Well, and it's not just them, it was George Martin, their producer, and
Sure,
he's
there you
called
go.
he's called the
Yeah.
Fifth Beatle. Now he, of course, was a trained composer, but Paul McCartney's father um, played a lot of kind of vaudeville music around the house, classical music around the house. So it was in Paul's bones, and he talks
So
about it often.
all of that informed their style and their taste was that was the foundation, all the different kinds of music they loved. Is that
Well, yeah,
right?
in the beginning, they were trying to outdo all the best, songwriters and performers of the day, whether it
Hmm.
be, Chuck Berry or Carl Perkins or Elvis or
Hmm.
Buddy Holly, so they became these master songs craftsmen and they became the best, songwriting duo ever. And then their own originality and their own influences started to really seep out in a more overt way. And you've got Harrison and the Indian influences and this.
Well, I was just going to say, I love the way, like, all my favorite artists, they all transitioned into different periods, so if you will, and they had the blue period, of course, and then this, that, and the other. But I love following the trajectory of their lives, and they would be influenced, like, of course, when they went to India and that came out, and I happen to think that's a mark of like of a talented artist when they don't stuck in one groove, and you're kind of like that yourself.
Well, I can only say that that is absolutely the mark of, a great artist. And that's, to bring it back, because I really want to make sure I kind of get to what the concept is of the show next week. But to bring it back to what's happening this week in Baltimore, Stravinsky's three Diaghilev ballets, Firebird, Petrushka, and Rite of Spring, of course, are, kind of they really embody this a certain period for Stravinsky, and he had many phases in his career from a compositional standpoint. But it's on purpose that I was wanting to combine one of these Diaghilev Stravinsky ballets with Kendrick Lamar because the Petrushka, Rite of Spring. I mean, this is some of the most important, original, groundbreaking music that's ever been composed, and I believe that's what Kendrick Lamar is doing. Um,
And Stravinsky was revolutionary in his time, was he not? And Rite of Spring, especially.
I'm not sure if you, I mean, most music historians would probably say it's maybe between Beethoven and Stravinsky as far as who was the most revolutionary, composer
I
of all time.
remember, I remember reading, correct me if I'm wrong, but like opening night audiences were really freaked out. They either loved it or hated it.
Well, that's what they say.
People
Riots.
stormed, like people was so dramatic back in those days. If they didn't like it, they would storm out. And they would just,
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, so the Beatles were just, and because my sister, had played them for me, and so my sister and I bond over the Beatles because my best friend and I sang those songs, ad nauseum and annoyed the teachers and the students on our buses on our high school musical trips and swing choir trips for 3 straight years. I mean, to go back to that music that I fell in love with as an adolescent at this point in time in my life, and to apply the techniques that I've developed and to apply my current compositional lens to that music was very special and very
Steve,
emotional.
Steve, I asked, how old are you?
I am, I just had to think about it. I'll be 45 this summer.
Okay, all right. Well, for me, I'm so excited because I mean, I mentioned Boomer. I'm 76, so of course, I watched them when they were on the Ed Sullivan Show, and it was life changing. And it was that same way for a lot of my contemporaries. I mean, it really was life changing. Their music, and It was and is still. I mean, talk about shelf life, it is timeless. It's classic, and it just brings back a flood of memory of my whole entire
Yeah,
life. I associate all their music catalog with my entire life.
I bet. I bet.
How many times have you presented it?
Well, first of all, I just literally got my age wrong. I'm 43. I'll be 44 in July.
That's so funny.
I get like we're planning so much for 2025 that like I kind of like was like, oh, this summer because I was born in 80.
Steven, that's hilarious. I think I like that. That's just, it tells me you live in the moment.
I don't. Yeah.
You're not preoccupied about, ageism is such a big deal with people. And
Well, no,
I just,
I guess because usually I just tell people I'm 33, so I don't know my actual. Um,
well, it tells me you're just really caught up in what you do. I mean, the rest of it is just kind of superfluous. But so the Beatles, I mean, I have an emotional attachment. I'll hear, stuff from Rubber Soul. It takes me right back to that period of my college days. And I mean, I get weepy over it sometimes. It just evokes all of these like rich, rich memories. And
that,
so
I mean, Tom, it's funny if you ask me sort of what is the goal of all of the things I'm doing, the ultimate goal, like, people are like, oh, where do you see yourself in 20 years or 10 years, 5 years or whatever? I mean, all I want is to be the soundtrack to somebody's life like that, to
ah.
to make the music that people indelibly attach to the moments that have shaped their life. That's everything to me.
Well, you hear it's kind of become a cliche, like the soundtrack of my life, but it's so true because, it's a universal thing.
Well,
And that's why there's oldies but goodies it's funny, the preoccupation with the decades, to measure that. I remember, I mean, my earliest youth, they were still playing, I was born in 48, so they were still playing stuff from the 40s. That's imbued in my memory of growing up listening to the big bands and all those folks. And then as we move on. And now radio with the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s music, and now we're into it's like young people today look at the 2000s as their period.
yeah,
It's amusing to me. It just reminds me of how old I am. So,
that's
but
wild.
it's universal. It's a universal thing, and how music. Like what Michael Feinstein, he always reminds us that the Great American Songbook is still continuing.
For
And
sure.
that it's any music that stands the test of time, you know, and it sounds like that's something that you surely embrace
Absolutely.
in the work that you do. You guys, this particular concert, just
Uh,
spell out,
next,
describe the evening.
we talking about Indianapolis next week?
Yeah, the show. So,
It
yeah.
eight total soloists. There's four vocalists joining the orchestra, drummer, bassist, pianist, and guitarist. And it's by far the biggest, sort of company of all the fusion productions.
And these are folks that you've worked with previously in some of your other works, or no?
Oh yeah. Well, it represented the first time I worked with several of them, but now, of course, we've played it several times. So, but yes, this is the first time I worked with Horace, the guitarist. It was the first time. It's the first time I worked with Tehran, the drummer, who now I work with all the time. Rachel, who's one of my favorite singers on the planet, just like all the rest of these singers. Yeah, this was I should also mention that the fact that this piece premiered as a small ensemble, as kind of a chamber orchestra, or even as almost like a band, was a huge step forward as well. So that commissioning opportunity that I talked about, well, it wasn't really a commission. It was just my friend, who was my very great friend in Sun Valley, who was having an event and that was the opportunity to promote the show. We did it with these eight soloists and then a string quartet. That was it. So it was a 12-piece band and then I was conducting. And that was sort of revelatory to me because up until that point, everything I had done was, of course, with a full orchestra. Not that I haven't written some smaller things, but the fusion work was exclusively sort of a full orchestra experience. So to do this small version and to premiere it that way opened a lot of doors, I think, and it opened my eyes to what's possible with a smaller ensemble. And then those innovations, I think, that had been that resulted through this small ensemble production. I've then, kind of applied those to the bigger shows as well. So it was a breakthrough piece for many, many reasons.
Let's give a shout out to Khalil Overton. I met him through you briefly. He was here for a short time, but he'll be in the show. Tell me about Khalil.
One of my favorite artists, one of the most special voices that I've ever heard, will ever hear. And Khalil, I always tell him, and I tell anyone who asks, he he never ceases. I think he's the most surprising artist I work with because he does things during performance that are truly shocking because of how incredible they are. You work with artists who are, of course, everyone I work with is on such a world-class stellar level, and they time in, time out, they deliver. And by the way, one of the only reasons any of these fusion productions are successful is because of the caliber of these artists and because of their unique combination of gifts. So all of them are always delivering. They're all consistent. But there are some artists who have that special gear, and that gear is only activated by an audience. And Khalil is somebody who, for him, he has several gears and extra gears that are activated by the audience. And every time I perform with him, he does things that are jaw-dropping.
Well, he's very very self unassuming, and when he told me his credentials, he's just sort of like, offhand, and then I find out that he studied at Berkeley, of course, and that he's done all this incredible work, but you wouldn't know the guy if you met the guy, what he's done. So
that's how a lot of these artists are. I mean, they're just naturals.
Speaking of artists, when I started this podcast, I've had it's been so much fun for me, Stephen, to talk to people like you because I'm very intentional that I also want to showcase individual artists. I had Kevin Lynn on, and he actually brought his Stradivarius and played some tunes. I mean, wow, I was just like, it was a rarefied experience. So, Steve, do you enjoy the meet and greets? Is that typical? I know that's, that we finally met when you did the Beethoven Coldplay concert. There was a really cool group of young professionals, and you showed up and we had a brief chat. But do you enjoy those?
I can say that, first of all, yes. And second of all, their importance is something that I learned very early on because I don't think any of this would have happened. Actually, I know none of this would be happening if it weren't for the Forte group at the Indianapolis Symphony, because they, and shout out to Kelly Marsh, who was the sort of head of the Forte group at this time, they activated in such a meaningful way around the very first concert that I gave with the Indianapolis Symphony, and this is when Time for Three and I were doing it together. They rang the alarm and they got the word out, and there were 1,200 people at that first concert that I did at the ISO. And if that show had not sold like that, I don't think there'd be any way that I would have continued to do things at the ISO, because at that time, what I was doing and what we were doing, again, I should give credit to Time for Three as well, because we were all in it together at that point, was so disruptive and was just kind of shocking, to the orchestra. Not, it wasn't kind of, it was shocking. So if the Forte group hadn't activated and hadn't gotten behind it, we wouldn't, I don't think any of it would have happened. And then every place I've been subsequently, whether it be Pittsburgh or Boulder or here in Baltimore, the quote unquote young professional groups or any parallel type of organization, they have supported my work. And
Well, that is so smart on the part of the symphony orchestra, isn't it? Not the ISO, having the foresight. We talked in depth, and I really do encourage people to go read the interview that we did, because we talk in depth about, the problem that every arts organization is having with, developing new audiences, creating new audiences for classical music. Classical music, I attend those concerts, and the majority are in fact boomers, and, young people. What the Forte is doing is exactly, in my mind, is a solution, but young people need to be introduced, and the work that you're doing. And the reason I asked about the meet and greets is that they give you feedback too. They tell you what they thought about it, right? And I suspect they're pretty frank and direct, are they not?
Well, definitely. And they oftentimes, of course, they represent the, sort of the target demographic, if
Exactly.
a young professional group. I'm not to say there isn't value in all feedback, because of course there is.
And you're one of them. So obviously you're relatable.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they sometimes ideas come out of that, ideas for future pieces, maybe.
You get validation though too, don't you?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And feedback.
That you're on the right track.
I think so. And, also I should just state that, listen, we signed up to be classical musicians in a time where classical music has been, of course, sort of on a steady decline in this country. And, if people are going to take issue with that or want to argue me on that, then
Steve, I think we talked about this too, but since our listeners didn't read that, no point not discussing it. Just briefly, can you tell me, do you have evidence that the folks these young people who are attending your concerts are coming back for the classical programs at their various orchestras where you perform?
I have evidence that it has piqued their interest. I have evidence that they've reached out to orchestras. They've reached out to me. So has it?
So, for instance, the Stravinsky piece, they come back because they want to hear a full piece, correct? The Stravinsky piece.
So I would say that at the beginning, when I started this work, that was, I think, the sole focus from an administrative standpoint, from an institutional standpoint, that this is the gateway, so to speak, to these audiences then becoming future subscribers.
Gotcha.
And I would say different orchestras that I've worked with were varying degrees of sort of strict about seeing those numbers and seeing that conversion. Over time, I think most orchestras have evolved their thinking around that. And instead, they've adopted the mindset of, we present a variety of musical offerings, and each one has a different audience. We, of course, encourage them to transition from one to the other. But I think many orchestras are realizing that the audiences that are coming for the film concerts might not ever buy a ticket to come hear the Bartok Concerto for Orchestra.
Okay.
Or the audience that are coming for a Michael Feinstein evening, or for a Beethoven Coldplay with Steve Hackman, might not ever, subscribe to, the classical and vice versa. However, they're entering the hall, they're experiencing the symphony orchestra, and let's not forget that everything and anything a symphony orchestra presents should be emblematic of what it does. Just because it's a different type of programming
Sure.
doesn't mean it shouldn't showcase who they are.
And they also understand that over one's lifetime, you continue to grow, and you're introduced to a symphonic or a symphony orchestra. Like myself, I didn't discover it until late when I was in college, and I'm continue. Well, of course, my line of work, I'm a reviewer, so it's my business, but I've become educated, over it took a lifetime to get to where I am now, where I absolutely love classical music, and I've heard enough to know I've become educated, but it took some time. It doesn't happen right away. Before I want to get to something real quick before we run out of time here. Last time we talked, you were like really in the middle of some exciting. You're doing a film score. Talk about that real quick.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, and just to follow up on that and just kind of put a button in, I mean, that was going to be my second point, that I think orchestras have also realized that it's a long game, and it's a relationship. Like, it doesn't matter how the relationship starts, whether it starts with a fusion, production, with a holiday production, or a special event, or a pops event. But yes, people evolve over time, and they could eventually be subscriber. And with my content, I announce from the podium to the entire audience. I say, if you're curious about this music, send me a message. Like, here's where you can reach me. I will recommend to you a concert to attend at the San Francisco Symphony, at the Cleveland Orchestra, wherever I am, at the Indianapolis Symphony. And that happens all the time. There's, so yeah.
Yeah, you made me remember that you do that, and it's just like, well, it just makes sense. You have a captive audience. You're up there on the podium. You have a bully pulpit. Before we run out of time, I really want my audience to hear another one of your pieces. So introduce this next piece so we could take a listen.
Excellent. And thank you for this. This is another piece from the Brink. This is from the Brink 2. And this piece is called No Sides. And as a little just kind of glimpse into the process here and a little kind of treat for the audience, this is based on conversations that I was having at this time. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Conversations that I'd had with Kanye West that I'd taken notes on. And this is sort of what the piece is about.
Okay, so let's hear it.
Now I'm seeing this light again, again. Is it a spotlight or reflection? Long days so thin as warming light appears. Give me nourishment, don't leave me vacant. Hear me when I pray. Hear me when I pray. There are no sides, no Says no. Says no. Says
So now tell me about this film. What's it called and who's producing it and what's it about and whatever.
The film opportunity is a direct result of Brahms' Radiohead at the Pittsburgh Symphony. This director is originally from Pittsburgh, now based in LA. And he was home and he saw Brahms' Radiohead all the way back in, I don't know when it was, 2016, 2017 maybe. And it so happens that we have the same agency in LA, and he had this feature that he's working on, and he's done a lot of big projects, most of which have been distributed through Netflix. And he told his agent, "Hey, get this guy Steve Hackman," and his agent was like, "Oh, I think our company actually works with them." So I'm very excited about it because he brought me into the project believing in what I do, and really, he's like an advocate. And it's not that he has had to advocate for me, because I think it's all going so great. But to feel like he, as the director, really trusts me and wants my authentic voice, is of great comfort, especially in this space that I'm new to, and that I have no experience in. So, and that's the reason why I took the project on, because yes, I do want to score for films, but with everything else going on, if somebody come to me and said, "Hey, we need you to score this new Marvel film, and we just want you to do what Michael Giacchino would have done," I'm not sure I would take that on, because with everything else that's happening for me, I don't know that replicating someone else's creative voice is really what I should be spending my time on right now. But instead, this director said, "No, I specifically am looking for your voice." And that meant so much to me, and it's been so much fun.
So Steve, what about Steve Hackman, the person? What drives you as an artist?
I mean, I would say it's what I was talking about before, that the idea that I have the opportunity, possibly, in my lifetime, to create music that could become the soundtrack for someone else's life, and that someone else could that it could move them in any way, whether it could be as simple as just making, turning around a bad day, or it could be as significant as this is, what I attach to this song is, or this piece is what I attach to this period in my life, or this relationship in my life. I mean, music, that's music has been such I think saving grace for me in my life. And it's just I've been able to turn to it, it's given me so much. And yeah, I think what drives me is I would love to give that to others.
So that explains your passion, what you just shared, why you're passionate about what you do.
I think, yeah, and I'm I'm just obsessed with sort of the creative process. And when I find a piece of art, whether it's a film, whether it's a piece of music, whether it's an opera, whether it's a book, I mean,
Mm.
it just gives me, I don't know. I become obsessed. I'm somebody that will watch a film over and over and over and memorize the whole thing, and will read a book over and over, and I just like, and it's so fun to kind of get in the creator's mind, and it just whether it's, I don't, whether it's fun.
Well, you're all of that mirrors my conversations that I've had with so many artists, how, it's inspiring to see a painting in a museum as it is. And I think you and I even talked about nature, and how that can inspire you as well. And you weren't in the path of the eclipse, were you? You should have been in Indy. We got to see it here.
Yeah, it wasn't the eclipse wasn't as much on my radar, but
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
So do you ever chill? Do you have balance in your life? I mean, what do you do when you're just relaxing? What is your relaxation, by the way? Do you watch streaming? Do you like sports? Do you like have any hobby? Do you like run? Do you do any, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't I'm sure that any outsider would say my life is incredibly imbalanced. Um, but I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
I love getting outside. I love being in the mountains in Sun Valley. I love skiing. I love biking.
California is your home, right?
Mhm. I'm in
Okay.
LA and I'm so lucky to be able to go bike in the Santa Monica Mountains when I'm and that's huge for me. So,
Oh,
and
so you bike. Okay.
yep, or I'll bike the beach, so I'll go for an hour and a half bike ride and that's huge. I mean, I love getting to the gym and working out or getting outside, like those are essential parts of my day because it gets me out of the
Yeah.
workplace. It's that's like a therapy of sorts for me.
Do you
Um,
hang out with friends? Do you like to dine out? I mean, do you like restaurants and you go to movies and all that kind of stuff?
well, I'm really lucky that my I work with such incredible people on these productions, and we're all
Wow.
friends, and we're all such a family. So there is social time built into that, like so. I would say that when I'm home in LA, well, that's not. I mean, LA is such a kind of networking town, so that yes, I'm going out to dinners and sometimes cocktail parties and things like that in LA, but mostly they're kind of industry type things. But I
Mhm.
get to, on Friday night we'll play tomorrow night we'll play Igor Dam Stravinsky with the Baltimore Symphony and I'll get to go have dinner with the soloists afterwards. And I love those people, and in Indy, well, we'll get to do the same. And so there's socialization built in to a point where I don't need much more.
Yeah. So we're going to close out with the other piece that another piece that you've written and what will we be listening to as we head out?
Great. I think it's another piece. This is another one from Brink 2. It's called For a Friend. And listen, I just want to mention right before we go, and I love her, of course. Well, we've already talked about it, but it's Wednesday night in Indianapolis. I would imagine tickets are hard to come by at this time, but maybe there are some tickets available still. But I never said that And I Love Her is what's unique about this show is that it's the music of the Beatles told through the lens of the women that inspired them.
Give me some of the titles.
It's the women that inspired them, primarily their mothers, actually, because Lennon and McCartney share a tragic
That's
bond.
right.
They both lost their mothers at very young ages. Um, so, and that theme appears in their music. I mean, you think of Let It Be as the obvious one, where that literally is a dream that Paul had about his mother giving him consolation and advice around where he was at with the band at that time. But then, of course, there's love songs, songs like Something, um, and, which George wrote about Patty Boyd. Um, but then it also tells the story of the kaleidoscopic female characters they created and invented, and they invented so many, from Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds to Eleanor Rigby, to even Blackbird, which is Paul, just literally his song about the civil rights movement.
Well, people are raving about Beyonce's new record and Blackbird on that piece. People are raving. I haven't heard of it. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah,
Talk about a fusion. Maybe you and Beyonce will, meet up and decide to work together. Wouldn't that be cool?
it would be. I know a lot of people that worked on that album, so I don't think that's too far-fetched. I love her music, and we're doing Beethoven and Beyonce with the Indianapolis Symphony in June.
Well, that's right. That's right. Why that probably was in my head and why I asked you that. Well, this has been an absolute delight, chatting with you. And I know, given your schedule, I'm really grateful to you. And I will be hopefully in that line at the meet and greet so we could chat.
Oh, great.
Will your whole company be coming out
Oh,
or
yeah.
just you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully I'll also see Khalil. So give him a heads up that you and I chatted,
Of course I will. I'll see him in an hour.
And by the way, again, did you say what we're going to listen to on as we close the show?
Yeah, this final one is another piece from the Brink 2. This one's called For a Friend.
Your look is a scream. Your question is just a question. My mouth's not yours to feed. I dishonor your mention. If I believe the lies, will you let me pretend? Would you give me your voice? I'm asking for a friend.
Storm is coming, it's heating me, be more electrical.
I'm asking for a friend.
Storm is coming, it's heating me, be more electrical.
I'm asking for a friend.
Storm is coming, it's heating me, be more electrical.
I'm asking for a friend.
Storm is coming, it's heating me, be more electrical.
Imagination's not unlimited. With meaning so explicit. With pressure so exceeding. With power at the limit. This is how I'll walk away. This is how I will defend. How you do anything is how you do everything. I heard it from a friend.
Storm is coming, it's heating me, be more electrical.
I heard it from a friend.
Storm is coming, it's heating me, be more electrical.
I heard it from a friend.
Storm is coming, it's heating me, be more electrical.
I heard it from a friend.
Storm is coming, it's heating me, be more electrical.
Okay, well, with that, take care, and we'll see you soon, okay?
I'll look forward to seeing you Wednesday. Tom, thank you for this.
Our thanks go out to our media sponsor, Urban Times. Urban Times is a monthly news magazine which serves as the official neighborhood newsletter for 16 Indianapolis neighborhoods, offering news about development, arts and entertainment, and from the business community.
Who will take center stage on the podcast next? Your seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez awaits. Follow Tom on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and make sure to visit tomalvarez.studio. Watch Tom every other Thursday on Lifestyle Live on Wish TV, and make sure to listen every week here on the All Indiana Podcast Network.